Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear okay and see okay. Whew. Alrighty. 23 in the house, probably more coming. Thank you for joining me this evening. I'm going to record this and it'll go up on my YouTube channel sometime in the next 24, 48 hours. Man, there's some heavy energy around at the moment. Heavy energy. Yeah, just within the natural world, within the matrix, it's sort of coming at us from a few different directions at the moment. Woke up this morning to a tsunami warning, and I don't know if you guys know, but I've moved right onto the beach here on the Gold Coast. So literally out the back of the place of the building where we live, you walk onto the sand of the beach, and wanted to take the boys for a swim this morning, but I haven't been feeling very well. So I thought I'll take them up to where the lifeguard is so that, you know, if they're in the flagged area and there's an issue, there's someone else there that can help save them. Because the surf at the moment, not tsunami stuff, but the surf over the last sort of week here has been massive, actually. Been 4 to 6 foot. So if you're not in the surfing world, that's decent big swell. So yeah, my kids are loving it, but I have to stay pretty close to them in the ocean so that they're within arm length. A couple of days ago, my middle son was like getting dragged out. I grabbed him and pulled him back. But anyway, wake up this morning to tsunami warnings. Beach closed here. Yeah, so, you know, and a lot to process, really. And what are we looking at? Like, you know, as above, so below. When we're looking at a tsunami, in this case, it was an underground volcano. Or underwater volcano. And, you know, right before the moon went into cardinal water, Cancer, and you have it, the sun moving into a conjunction with Pluto, and Pluto rules the depths, right? And usually when there's an activation of Pluto through, especially a personal planet like the sun or moon, Plutonic themes can manifest into the physical reality, especially sun and moon. And in this case, what's happening here on Tuesday morning, which is the full moon in Cancer, it's in pretty much exact opposition to Pluto as well. So the personal planets, especially sun and moon, allow a pathway for the outer planets to manifest into physical reality. Because normally the outer planets, right, we think of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, they are beyond the orbit of Saturn. So with the physical eye, we can't see them, right, in the sky. We have to use telescope to go beyond the capability of our conscious mind. We have to use technology to pierce into deep space. And that's metaphor for they operate from our unconscious, right? So the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto operating from our unconscious. And when they have a pathway into consciousness, in our personal life, we come in contact with these Plutonian themes. So in this case, you're combining Pluto and Cancer, or the moon energy, and you're getting some deep emotional well-ins that are coming up. And, you know, there could be some issues from the past that are coming up now to be resolved. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight and break down the Cancer full moon. Shortly after that, 16 hours later, Uranus turns direct, which is pretty dynamic. And then I'm going to break down a little bit of the nodal shift as well, which is happening 18 hours after the full moon. And we got the north node moving into Taurus and the south node moving into Scorpio. But yeah, so we wake up this morning to geological activation, right? And we've got an underwater volcanic eruption. And, you know, this is sort of metaphor for something that's underwater. Well, we know water symbolizes emotion, right? So it's something deep in the emotional body. And the underwater volcano is the Pluto eruption, right? And Pluto can be repressed feelings, repressed emotions, memories from the past. It can be, you know, that soul impressing, trying to push through and find its way into our lives. And the soul's unconscious yearning, its desires. Pluto often brings about transformation through crisis. It often also works in a deep polarization, so splitting into extremes before they collapse onto each other and unification is found. So yeah, very, very symbolic of this you know, deep emotional energy that, and transformational energy. And it's a little bit like cleaning house at the moment. I feel like, you know, a lot of stuff that may have been just simmering below the surface, or that you've repressed or not really wanted to deal with. And it's just sort of like, oh, here it is. Here's like a little boil that's popped, and up it comes. And now it's like, I got to confront this. And Mother Earth has her little pimple under the ocean, and pooh, off goes a volcano. So pretty awesome too, the rapid rate in which that information, and also the footage of it came through really quickly and rapidly. And then like the satellite imagery and that, and, you know, I'm always a little bit cautious with things like that, because, you know, if you know my views on NASA and, you know, this plane of existence that we live on, and the amount of fuckery. But the other second thing that's been quite, especially, and it's on the, obviously on the world stage, but for us here in Australia in particular, is this Novak Djokovic scandal, basically. So is there not deep within that some deep emotional polarization that's going on in the matrix, the collective? Definitely it's like, you know, because Tonga's not too far from Australia. You know, it's just north of New Zealand area. So it's in our neighborhood, right? And then literally in our actual reality here in Australia, we have this little pimple that's popped, the Djokovic scandal, which is going to, just like a tsunami, it's sending the ripples around the world, right? And what's it doing? It's polarizing. It's creating a lot of division. It's creating a lot of insecurity, you know, people feeling helpless. Like, what the fuck? How could that happen? That's ridiculous. You know, one side of the argument is he's been ripped off, and the other side of the argument is he has to follow the rules like the rest of us. And it's just like, man, what is it doing to everyone? It's just stirring up emotions, right? And at the end of the day, you know, all said and done, what sort of bearing does the Djokovic scandal have on your personal life? Fucking zero, really. I mean, you might be watching Australian Open without it, if you're a tennis fan. But outside of that, people are going to feel a lot of emotional energy tied into that. I know even myself, I'm not insane. I was like, when I heard the news, I was like, you know what? That's fucked up. That's fucked up. But it is quite indicative of this fucking upside down reality that we live in at the moment. Yeah, exactly. Psychological distraction, a psyop. You might hear that word called a psyop. What's a psyop? Well, a psychological operation. And it, you know, it's designed to distract the masses or to lead them away from things. I said in a YouTube video the other day, it was like, you know, you can sort of see the narrative around the Nova bullshit is literally falling apart. Yet the same political puppets are up there pushing now. Oh, yeah, what's going to fix this? It's going to reduce the curve. There's another shot, because the first two just they didn't work. So, you know, that scandal's unfolding, and then you have this Djokovic scandal as well. So I feel though, as a bit of a theme, that it's probably that song, "We've Only Just Begun." I'd say that this is sort of a bit of an appetizer as to what's to come this year, and reflective in this nodal shift as well, Taurus, Scorpio. So we're dealing with some deep emotional energy. Yeah. So let's have a look at the, I'll just quickly jump in the chat and see if there's any questions, anyone has any comments. Yeah, heavy but light, because I knew something of this was coming. Yeah, seen some sick videos of people surfing the tsunami. I saw one of people, and again, how accurate is this? It's on the internet, so I'm presuming that it's, you know, coming from where they're saying it's coming from, but they were like standing there with selfie stick, and then all of a sudden it's like, there's literally like a tsunami coming, which is like a rapid flood that's going to engulf the land. And they're just there with the cameras. Like, that was a bit of a snapshot for me of like where reality and people are at too, is like, you know, like literally the earth speaking, like fucking, you know, time to make some changes. And it's like, let's get a photo of it. Like, for us though, in this, the warm comfort, you know, Cancer moon, comfort of, you know, safety over here on the untouched shores, it's like, oh, cool. Cheers, bro. Just for the footage. probably mashing up a Tongan accent there with a New Zealand one. Yeah, embarrassment of Victoria, Australia, global scale. Embarrassment of everyone involved. It literally embarrassment of everyone involved, bar obviously Djokovic. And that's my personal opinion. And if you have a different one, let's debate it. But what an absolute disgust, really. Yeah, used as a scapegoat. And to keep people into their place of this deluded comfort zone, right? Oh, well, I feel better now because I've had what I've had to endure and what I've gone through to stay safe for the world. And he can't just come here and do that. It's like, oh, man. But anyway, a distraction as it be. So let's have a look firstly at the Cancer full moon. Let's just go now. Can everyone see the chart on the screen? Yeah. Cool. So let's just go to what it is. Oh, actually, we'll have a look. There it is now. The moon is in Cancer. It's squaring Chiron. So, you know, when you've got this square to Chiron, Chiron is the sore point, right? Is the sore point. And certainly this Djokovic news that broke only an hour or two ago, it's definitely activating this you know, wound, and whatever that archetypal wound is for a lot of people. Inner child stuff, right? A lot of inner child stuff at the moment. And especially with that Pluto in Capricorn, because, you know, it's going to be different for everyone, but Pluto is going to be a lot of digging up the past with our own issues with authority when we were young, right? Where we were shut down, where we were told no, where we were told like follow the rules, or you're not allowed to do that, or you're not good enough. And what happens is our innocence can be threatened by authority, right? So we'll all probably have that wound to varying degrees depending on our own self-work. But that Sun conjunct Pluto is sort of like, you know, the Sun is the light of consciousness, and it sort of amplifies and activates that Pluto, and all sorts of fucking dark shit can come up. And, you know, with this square to Chiron, it can be a lot of memories and emotional memories, which is something actually I want to try not to forget to highlight about the talk on the nodal shift, which is emotional memory, and why we sort of look at the moon's node as relating to the past. And it has a lot to do with emotional memory. So yeah, here's Uranus stationing at 10 degrees of Taurus. So in pretty much almost 2 degrees away from my Taurus natally. So I'm having my Uranus opposition, which is the 44th year of the midlife crisis. So that's interesting personal thing to go through. And the node here at 0 degrees of Gemini retrograding, as they do retrograde. And they have this sort of 18.5-year-odd cycle that they do. So we're going to have a look quickly, not to spend too much time boring you on what was going on 18.5 years ago, and what sort of, and interesting too, like just as this node shifts into Taurus, Scorpio, we literally have an underwater volcano. Can anyone, and don't answer now, but maybe bring this up when we talk about the nodes, but just have a think about what was happening in 2004. Any significant event you can remember, a worldwide event that happened that was in 2004 towards the end of that year, around Boxing Day. So yeah, let's have a look. Let's fast forward to when we get the opposition here, and it's going to be on Tuesday morning. So there we are, Tuesday morning, minutes, 27 degrees, 50 minutes. And you know what, it's like, again, with astrology, it's a language of symbols. So we want to pull in all our symbolic sort of information that we can. And one of the things you might hear me talk about a little bit is the Sabian symbols, because they're a symbol for each dynamic degree of the zodiac, and they help to understand the sort of symbolic nature of that degree. So it's an interesting sort of thing to do. So I'll have a look a little bit at that too, at this Cancer. But 27 degrees. So in your own chart, you want to look to your Capricorn Cancer axis and what houses that Capricorn and Cancer rules. And chances are this is the area in your life where this is now being, so what's happening in the world and how you're responding and reacting to it, how you're responding to the Djokovic scandal, indifference or not, or just the threat of a tsunami, and what that's stirring up for you emotionally, or what other things that are coming up for you emotionally. You can, to get a more specific understanding personally of what that may be, you can have a look at your Cancer Capricorn axis in your chart, and look across those houses and the themes associated with the houses. And, you know, the Cancer is going to be bringing that emotional energy to light. So the full moon acts as, you know, a revealing point. So it reveals information. It's sort of, when the sun is opposing, or the moon is opposing the sun, the moon is now picking up all of the reflected light from the sun. So deep into the unconscious, the subconscious, these things can be revealed to us. And in Cancer, the themes are around nurturing, nourishment, emotional security. You know, so it can be issues around the home, the family, where we have emotional insecurities, you know, and again, across the houses that they are in your chart will be giving you more of that specific story of what's happening for you. But Pluto is pretty much the most dynamic planet involved in this lunation. However, when we're talking about a lunation, we're talking from a new moon through to a new moon. Right? This is just the halfway point of that cycle where things sort of shift and come to light. So if you can go back, you know, 2 weeks to the new moon in Capricorn, and, you know, that Capricorn house in your chart, what was being activated for you in that chart. And it will have themes around structure, you know, responsibilities, obligations, and are you... So I've moved into Chugan, and we're the northern end of the runway. So when the wind's blowing from the north, they take off towards the north, and they bank right over the top of you. So, but it's good. I mean, you walk out the back door and it's the beach, so it's nice. But you might hear that in the background coming over every now and then. Yeah, so, you know, our Capricorn is all of the obligations, responsibilities, you know, the structure, our ambitions to an extent, our goals, right? So, and our sense of recognition or achievement. You also want to look at your Saturn, because Saturn's the ruler of Capricorn, and you want to see what's going on with your Saturn. In this case, collectively with Saturn in Aquarius, and we've got this Mercury retrograde, which is highlighting that. So, you know, the story is that, you know, authority, regardless of your status, Capricorn, right? Your public image, regardless of your public image, Capricorn, who's calling the shots here, right? And this Mercury is like the narrator of the story, and retrograding in conjunction to Saturn. And we literally have here in Australia, you know, it doesn't matter the status of the person. We, the almighty totalitarian authority, we're in control. And we'll say who can come into this country under what circumstances, regardless of whether they have followed the rules, Capricorn. It's like, you know what, we're in control here, right? And don't you forget it. And, you know, the Pluto aspect is just to, boom, what does it do? It splits people, it's division, right? And division does what? It keeps them in control, right? Because when we are divided, we're divided against who? One another. The key to this type of heavy emotional energy, or this feeling of insecurity or feeling of disempowerment, is not to polarize yourself into an opposing point or a polarity or a negative, like it's good or it's bad. It just is. And that's the power the Matrix has, which is the mind control system, right? It has power to affect your thoughts and your mind and your thinking, to control you and get you to think a certain way or believe a certain way. And when you have these types of events that are very triggering and polarizing, whenever you're into polarization, you'll always be opposed by the equal and opposite force. There is no right or wrong. That from this point of view, you know, they're valid in thinking that way and they're valid in thinking that way, but they're going to clash or always. And it's the power that they have. It's like order out of chaos, right? Which is that order ab chaos. I think it's one of those Latin sayings that is very prominent within Freemasonry. Order out of chaos. And they create the chaos so that they can bring in the order. Like, we're in control here, right? And the chaos is like, oh, this warring and divisiveness between each other. And there might be some of that because it's playing out in the collective. There might be some of that personally for you in your own life, you know, and that can be playing out this polarity between what are my obligations and my responsibilities, but how am I feeling? Do I feel secure and safe? Am I being nurtured? And sometimes there can be this dependency that you put on someone else. Like, you need to make me feel good. Look what I'm doing. I'm doing all these things. And, you know, you're supposed to make me feel good. I'm being one way, you're supposed to be the other way. And that can play out in relationship, you know, like I'm being responsible. I'm doing all of the work. I'm taking on all of the responsibilities here. You don't notice me. And then putting the obligation for nurturing, nourishment, to make you feel good, the Cancer, into the other person. Because an opposition like that, and even though we've got an opposition of the sun and moon every month on a full moon, this is an opposition of the moon and Pluto, right? So this is a really deep, big opposition of the moon and Pluto. And, you know, an opposition, often they play out in relationship, whether it be your personal relationship or a friendship or a parental figure, it very well could be someone close to you, someone that has a position of authority. And this is sometimes too where any sort of codependencies or emotional dependencies in the relationship can be really highlighted as well. So the key in any opposition is to learn how to blend the two, right? Or to sit in that neutral zone of, like, you know, there's that aspect and there's that aspect. It's not negating one for the sake of the other or opposite, because anytime you do, you are falling into this, you know, seesaw act of like, So there's always a third way, and it's to find the third way at the moment. Venus is still retrograde in Saturn signs, and, you know, as we shift through this full moon and into the nodal shift, she becomes really, Mars and Venus really play an important role over the next 18 months, because Venus rules the north node in Taurus, and Mars will be ruling the south node in Scorpio. So when we have a look shortly at the nodal shift, we'll bring that into attention and what we can expect from their little dance that they're doing, because they're getting closer and closer in the sky as well. But, you know, with Venus in reflective mode within Capricorn too, it's like around your obligations, your responsibilities, those things that the commitments that you have, Venus is asking you to look and say, well, are these deeply aligned to your values? Is there an alignment there? Or is there some things that need to be addressed within that? You know, where all of a sudden you've become overly committed or overly sort of obligated, and there's a disalignment of values. This can be playing out personally in your relationships. It might be playing out in your work. Might be playing out, you know, anywhere in your life where you have some obligation to another person, or even where there is a hierarchy of power or authority, right? So my boss at work, or my father that still has a lot to say about my life, or I might have a controlling partner. The other thing that can be brought in at the moment with the Cancer aspect is mother issues, right? So around parenting from the maternal aspect, you know, so, and, you know, that can be bringing up issues around your own mother relationship with your actual biological mother, but it also, if for those of you that are mothers out there, there might be issues around, you know, with your children, might be coming up against, you know, some challenging behavior around, you know, how you parent your children, and that might be highlighted in this state as well. There's a few questions and comments. I'll just play the box. People are saying interesting. Big family stuff coming up. There you go. United we stand, divided we fall. Mum life, catch the replay. Thanks. You're in for it. No problem. All good. It's going to be recorded. Well, it actually is recorded, so that's all good. Yeah, family stuff, emotional stuff. And with Pluto, it's about the transformation. If these dysfunctional habits, if these unhealed wounds tend to stay within our unconscious, they tend to rule over our auto habits. The reactiveness that we have, or the response, the way we respond to certain situations. So if we have a habit or a nature to react or respond a certain way when we feel insecure, or when we've got pressure on us, or when we feel like we aren't being nurtured, right? When we feel like we have no control, right? This is a lot of this control issue that can come up at the moment, or where we're being controlled. And we might feel auto response or reactiveness, like it's just habitual, it's just the way I am. Well, a lot of that is pre-programming, either from this life existence and experience, emotional experience early in life, or even pre-life as well. So other past life experiences. And if we don't address them, they tend to rule from the shadows. And it's a little bit like what's happening in the outer reality at the moment. Personally, if we allow the dysfunctional parts of ourselves to remain unconscious and to rule us from the shadows, then we have bad habits as a result. And we might have tendencies that create plutonic moments within our reality. And, Pluto being the co-ruler of Scorpio, along with Mars, can deal with a lot of deep-seated anger. And it's like we might be trying to be a certain way for a certain time, but all of a sudden, it's just like that pimples burst, and the next thing is out it comes, and it comes out in a fiery, angry, really just explosive, right? Volcanic eruption of emotional energy. And that is because we've probably had it there in the unconscious, or we've repressed it, or we've not dealt with it, and it will rule us from the shadows. And if we look into the world at the moment, what we've allowed a shadow aspect that is definitely in control of our financial, our political, our corporate, our media systems. There is a shadow aspect of it. In other words, it is unseen, unclear, unconscious, not visible. It is doing what? It's fucking ruling us, right? So how do we correct that? Well, we correct it when we make our personal commitment to self, is that we're going to address these aspects of ourselves. We're going to bring them to light. We're not going to, and we're going to face the light on them, shine the light of consciousness on them, become aware, and we can make the unseen seen. We can bring a lot of that stuff to the light, so that we can allow it to transform us. With Pluto, we have the opportunity to transform through self-transformation when we address it, right? We have the conscious courage and the empowerment to address it, and we confront it, and we say, right, okay, I've got this habit, I'm going to overcome it. We might set with Capricorn energy, we might set a disciplined approach to overcoming a habit, which we might start to set a commitment, Capricorn commitment, to stop doing a certain thing over a period of time. Or the other way, more positively, would be to start doing something positive or more productive as a result. And we can address it and we can change it. We lost my train of thought just there for a second. Come back to me. Sometimes that happens, Mercury retrograde in my birth chart, and my mind will just go before I finish speaking. So I finish speaking, and then it's like, whoa, where'd the mind go? Overcoming the dysfunctional habits. So, using a Capricorn energy, make a commitment, start a new routine, set a goal, break a habit, make a habit, right? So that might be in a way in which we can address this unconscious behavior, or this past pattern of behavior ruling us from our unconscious, right? And having control over our responsiveness, right? Our emotional predisposition, and especially our emotional predisposition when we are confronted in disempowering situations, when we feel like our personal power has been threatened, right? When we feel like our personal power has been threatened, we may unconsciously, habitually respond and react from the place of deep wounding or emotional scarring from our early childhood, right? Yeah, cool. So just on that, that's the other thing I was going to say. That's where my mind went to the point before I'd finished speaking. My mind went to a point that I was going to make, and then I was like in my head telling, "Don't forget that." But I was still speaking, and then when I stopped speaking, I'm like, "What the fuck was I speaking about?" But the point was, now I've done it again. The point was, I was going to make is that sometimes with this type of Pluto activation is a lot of darkness, shadow, concealed or secretive stuff can just burst into light. And we can be made aware of something that we have, from darkness to light. All of a sudden, it can just happen rapidly. It may already be happening in your personal lives, but it probably will continue over this this full moon period as we move into Tuesday and Wednesday. And that can be quite confronting, but often when that happens, and you're made aware of something that you weren't, the initial reaction and response, that's something that, will be part of your programming, your unconscious responsiveness, your emotional predisposition, which will be part of your programming from either early experience in this life or pre-life, right? And that's the thing that once it's popped, right? Once it's come out and you've had the reaction to it, then you can be like, oh, well, then the transformation takes place, right? Now, something I wasn't aware of, now I'm aware of, and I can address it. Transformation to self-transformation, when the courage, the consciousness, and the commitment to say, right, I'm going to address that. Or transformation often to crisis, where you resist and resist and resist and repress and repress, and the next thing it's just like it's a crisis. You literally, something comes to light and the relationship ends or breaks down, or someone says I've been having an affair, or you find someone that's been cheating, or some way in which you feel like your personal power's been eroded. Now, the initial reaction to something like that can be quite disempowering, but ultimately what it does is it transforms your reality and it brings that to light as a result. With regards to the collective at the moment, yeah, okay, there's nothing we can do about the Djokovic situation, but what it's doing is bringing to light of the dysfunctional nature of our systems of authority, right? So really, literally, one person in a position and within the government has activated his God power and said, hey, I will sword the Almighty and I will say. There's no judicial process to it. It's just his right to do that. So that stinks a lot of authoritarianism or totalitarianism, right? And that's a dangerous place for humanity to be in. They're giving so much power to one particular person. And we go back in history and we look at when something like that was happening, and what comes to mind is Nazi Germany. Wow, good, cool, Amity. So this is the power of astrology. It's to know thyself. So hopefully this has been being helpful for you guys. I find what happens a lot with these types of things is that your consciousness is just picking up, the things that are meant for you. Not all of it's going to make sense. Not all of it's going to resonate. And that'll be a parcel of, because I'm not specifically talking about you. We're talking about the collective in general. But that's good that it's resonating. Thank you. So I want to give you a visualization. So if there's been an experience in your past and an emotional experience that has somewhat disempowered you, now I'm reminded of, and I won't reveal, too much detail for, not wanting to make a big deal, but I had a client who had a difficult experience in their early childhood. And rightly so, and very validated to feel in her adult state now a sense of resentment towards those involved in that experience, and and an unwillingness to forgive, and just to be like, I can't get over, or can't get by, I can't understand what had happened. And whilst that's very valid, what that will tend to do is remain her now in her adult life in a very disempowered state, because the experience is finished. The actual experience, it's in the past, it's not happening anymore, but yet the story that she's telling herself about it, the narrative and the meaning that she's giving to that experience, she's now reliving it every time it is either coming through as a memory, whether it's conscious or not, whether it's being triggered by something happening in reality, or whether she's had to speak about or think about those people involved. And that can only mean that now in adult life that she can feel somewhat, when it comes to being driven, being goal orientated, being able to take control of her life and being empowered to feel fulfillment, there might be this break in her ability to consciously enact that. Yeah, cool. So there's a little visualization healing technique that I find is quite useful to help start the process. I'm not saying this is the be all and end all, do this and you'll be healed forever, but it's part of the process of being able to heal these past experiences. Often what's happening is the inner child, or the child that experienced that experience, what felt threatened or disempowered or insecure or fearful at that time, right? And what's happening now as an adult is that little child that lives within us in our consciousness, or they're called the inner child, very poignant now with the moon in Cancer, ruling by the moon, but also that inner child aspect, dealing with that child, that inner child of needing nurture and needing to feel secure and feeling loved and feeling nourished, that emotional inner child, So what's happening now in adult life is when, a similar emotive situation arises, it's the little insecure child that actually gets control of the adult and reacts and responds the way it does, and feels either helpless or disempowered, or, or avoidance issues, or reactiveness, or fear. And the adult, it can be quite irrational for an adult to be in that state, in sometimes meaningless things that trigger that state of being. It's because within the consciousness of that person is still that little girl or that little boy that's experiencing that type of emotional overwhelm at an early age. So one little visualization meditation sort of technique is to bring that situation or that memory to light, right? You might want to sit quietly in a darkened room, and you might want to just set an intention that you're going to focus your energy on the past and healing this sort of experience. And you'll ask yourself, in your memory, what's the most significant memory that I have of feeling that way? Or when did I feel that way as a child? Or it might be just like, yeah, I can remember it was like this, I can remember my dad overpowering me or whatever. So then what you want to do is close your eyes and recreate that scene in your mind as an observer. So you will have your little version of self, whether it be boy or girl, and you'll have the people that were in that, whether it's a bullying incident or a trauma incident or a violent issue with a parent or a sibling or something like that. And you recreate the scene in its full color and full experience, and you watch it as the adult from like a third person perspective, and you watch it play out. You just relive it and watch it play out. You watch little you have the emotional response, and you allow that process to take place. And then what you do is you enter the scene as the adult, and you console that inner little version of you, that younger version of you. You console them, and you console them with this Cancer aspect. And this Cancer quality is to embrace and to nurture. Think of the crab, like it's like, bring you in here, like I got you, right? And it's to make that child in that moment feel heard, feel validated, feel secure, and feel safe. So you want to, using that visualization, add the emotion to the nurture and the love. And you can repeat like, it's okay, I'm here now. I'm here now. You're safe. It's okay. I'm here now. And, you know, something along those lines to that nature. Once you've gone through that visualization, then if you like, you can actually replay that scene again. And this time you can do one of two things. You can empower the younger version of you to stop the situation or to respond effectively at that time, or you can step in as the third person, as the adult, and stop the situation and diffuse it, right? So what you're doing is you're going back to that memory, you're making that little inner version or inner child of yourself feel secure and safe again in that threatening moment. And then as well, on top of that, you're actually rewriting the memory now, because you've now, you know, you've lived however long with that reactiveness to that situation. But now you're an adult. You don't need to feel as threatened in those situations anymore. That becomes irrational. So now you're going back and you're going to say to that little girl, hey, or that little boy, it's all good. I'm here. You're safe. That's my job, to protect you. You're safe. The next aspect to that is to rewrite the scene. Now you can change that memory, right? Out of this, you want to do some journaling, you want to do some gratitude, you want to be able to give gratitude for the experience and for the teaching, right? Another thing that you can do is you can get a picture. I had a session recently with someone and I brought up this example, and 2 days before our session, she dug up a photo, you know, randomly, coincidentally, of the experience that I was taking her back to. And it was like, the photo of the little girl at that time that had gone through that. She's like, it was like when I was in grade prep, and there's the photo of me in grade prep. So then what you can do is you can carry that photo. So you can dig up a photo of the time that best sort of resonates with that younger version of you, and you carry that with you. So anytime going forward that you feel a little bit of the same feeling coming over, or a bit of overwhelm, or a memory is triggered, you pull out the photo and you nurture yourself, right? And you say, hey, it's all good. I'm here now. I'm here now. We don't have to experience that anymore. So it's a little healing technique, little visualization technique. It's more powerful the more emotion that you can put into the situation, and the more that you can make that inner child of yourself feel safe and secure. This is the Cancer quality of nurture and nourishment. This is the divine mother. It's that protective quality, right? So think of the crab. It has that protective quality. It's got a really hardened shell, soft in the middle, right? Very protective. And it's a symbol of that type of divine protection that a mother can give its child. Now, you might not be a mother now, and you might not have children, but there is a little inner child that lives within you. And your job as an adult is to make sure that that little child is safe, secure, and free to what? Express themselves, to be themselves, to feel free to just play, to have joy, to not feel threatened. Right? Cool. So yeah, but that's, guess what? That's your responsibility, not what no one else. What happens though sometimes, and this is what can be coming up with this Pluto aspect now, is we may have laid that responsibility of feeling safe and secure into our job, into our partner, into our work, into our, you know, family, into something or someone outside of ourselves. And we've placed that burden or responsibility upon them to make us feel that way. And it's because we are insecure. In other words, that little child of ourselves feels threatened, vulnerable. Absolutely. It's our job. It's our job. Yeah. So we'll have a little pause if you wanted to grab a drink or anything. We're going to sort of briefly talk about the Uranus direct, and then we'll go into these nodes. And at the end, I'll leave it open to some questions. Like I said, this is being recorded. So if you need to go because you've got child parenting commitments or you're tired, that's all good. It'll go up on my YouTube in the next day or two. For those watching on the recording, yeah, thanks for tuning in. Uranus, the planet of sudden change, freedom, individuation. You know, it's had a lot to say with the last sort of few lunations of 2021. It was in retrograde motion, but aspecting the lunations, especially the solar eclipse that happened in, I believe it was December. And Uranus in retrograde motion, you know, there is this need for this type of sudden transformation or this rebellion or individuation process, but it's more happening on the mental plane. It's more of this sort of inner knowing of what you need to do, but yet the doing of it hasn't been done yet. I'm having this playing out in my personal life at the moment with my 3 kids that are here, you know, on a holiday up from Victoria. They're going back soon, but you know, all through this period, it's like, oh, I've got to do this. I've got all these little things and these little habits that I want to start doing, and these. Yeah, but yet I'm like, oh, I can't do them yet, can't do them yet, can't do them yet. And then the Uranus direct is going to be a bit of a shift in that. And the interesting thing about Uranus is in Taurus, it's like this revolution of our value system, right? Of what the things that we think we need to have in order to feel secure and safe. Taurus being in the earth sign of possessions, material possessions. And the symbol of Taurus is the I have. So Uranus is coming into the I have aspect of life and going, oh, is that what you need? Is that what you think you need? Is that really what you want? And it's causing, on a personal level, this radical innovation and transformation of our value system. On the collective, it is really quite obvious that we are being driven into either forcefully and without consent into a transformation of values, or we're realizing that in order to stay and maintain the Saturn stagnation of reality, the status quo, that we're having to, if we don't want that, what do we need to do? We need to revolutionize our value system. But Uranus is, you know, its nature is to bring back a little bit of balance where things have become unbalanced and too Saturnian, right? So too structured, too authoritarian, too locked down, too restricted. You know, and what happens when things become too Saturnian is that they age, they get older, they become less useful, I guess. We become, things atrophy as a result, right? So that aging and decaying process can take place, the stagnation can take place. And like, it's pretty clear with what 2020 has exposed for a lot of people is that we really can't keep doing reality the same. We can't keep giving, you know, blind Orwellian power to shadow aspect of reality. And, you know, we have these puppets that are being controlled from the shadows. They're being controlled by what? They've either been controlled by their own desire for power and control, right? So they want to have it, maybe because they don't feel it in their life. Their insecure little child is feeling a little insecure and they feel good with power. Or it's from a financial perspective, right? And this is where Uranus comes in. It's like the financial aspect of, right, I can have more, and greed aspect to it. I can have more money, I can have more power, I can have more things, I can have more possessions, I can have more, right? So what we need to do is we need to revolutionize those things that we hold as value. And we also need to stop doing Saturnian reality. In other words, there needs to be a transformation, a breakthrough, an individuation process. Uranus turning direct 16 hours after this full moon. So you've got this full moon energy sort of releasing, and then Uranus all of a sudden turning direct. And often in times, the Uranus turning direct can bring that those sort of innovative, sudden, quick shifts of reality can really bring them to the forefront. So I really feel like this full moon is going to have a lot to say about this Uranus going direct and things shifting really quickly. The Mercury Retrograde that happened a few days ago, was stationing in square to Uranus as well. And because Mercury is in between Saturn and Pluto, where it's going to make its retrograde, it's just going to just pass Pluto and sort of sit on it where it goes direct. I feel like the narrative, the story is going to shift. It's going to shift really quickly. And it might shift through this sudden things like drawing our attention to other places. Because like, if we think about the collective in the last 2 years, it's all been around this whole, you know, pandemic and everything that's come out of that. And as that narrative starts to lose power and potency, it really is becoming very obvious of how, and even to, you know, the unawakened person, like the extent and degree in which these political puppets are going to try and continue to maintain control and push the same thing down the road, even though it's clearly not really being effective. It's like something's going to break, something's got to shift. And I really feel like the Uranus direct on this full moon, having activated that Mercury retrograde, is probably going to be a shift in the story, a shift in, you know, the way we think about, or our perception, you know, where something else is taking out. And deep down underneath all of that, what does it do? It causes us to reevaluate those things that we value. What do we have to have in this world? What do we really want? So yeah, it's going to be, I would say, an interesting few days between now and Wednesday, Thursday, which brings me to the nodal shift happening on Wednesday. Just get to that. Any questions on the full moon, the Uranus aspect? Just as I'm getting this chart ready, I am going to be in Melbourne on the weekends, and if you are wanting to have a face-to-face session, I am probably going to be available Monday and Tuesday next week in Melbourne, at a location unknown yet, but I'll get that clear as I get closer. So Monday and Tuesday I'm going to be in Melbourne. Yeah, cool. I think evaluating personal soul values at this time is beneficial. Yeah, deep down, right? When all's said and done, like with everything that's going on in the world, and I guess that's what COVID has given us the opportunity, is like, what do we really want in the world? What do we really need? What do we really have to have? Right? Do we really, you know? And it's this adjustment to like our goals and our ambitions, and really like the more healing work that you do and the more sort of transformation work and self actualizing, you realize you need less and less and less and less and less. And actually what you want is experience, and you want, you know, connectedness. And, you know, you want to just enjoy beautiful sunset or go camping and catch a fish and do those simple things. If you know what your soul values are, you will set a standard for yourself and assist the manifestation process. I feel absolutely, I mean, well said, what your soul values are. So, you know, on a personal note, if you're looking to souls within a chart, you're looking to your Pluto, and, you know, in combination with your South Node. But where is your Pluto? In house location for Pluto, because it's a generational planet. So, you know, for myself, I've got Pluto in Libra. There's like a huge number of us born with Pluto in Libra. After us, it's Pluto in Scorpio. So, you know, look to the house placement, and that's going to help you understand. I've learned so much about life, people, and myself over the past 2 years. I stand strong in my soul values. Yeah, good, nice. You know, and like, what a big full moon to make that intention clear. And, you know, what you could be doing as a full moon sort of, you know, ceremony or ritual would be to release, you know, any aspect or areas of your life that are not in alignment to your soul values. Soul, Pluto, and, you know, that soul connection as well through Cancer, being the ruler of the fourth house and our, you know, our ancestral connection. With that Pluto full moon too, we are not personally just dealing with our own personal past. We are dealing with the collective past trauma in all aspects of where the collective has had issues with authority. Yeah. And like we're, you know, they're doing the ancestral healing. When you personally heal in this life and you overcome a dysfunctional pattern of behavior, you don't stop it just for you. You stop it for everyone that got you here, right? Because everyone that got you here. Now, it's not their fault that these patterns of behavior happen. It's just the nature of reality that we're moving through at this time and space. These are the lessons that we come here as a collective and souls to to heal, right? And to move through. We chose these times, we chose these burdens, we chose these patterns of dysfunction. But when we heal and we say no, like Neo in the Matrix, and we stop that process, we not only do it for ourselves, but we do it for everyone that got us here and all those that are going to come after. And we elevate collective consciousness as a result. The soul has an unconscious desire to return to its origin of bliss, unconditional love, enlightenment, a state of pure bliss state. Right? No condition are placed upon that state of being. Imagine that. So that's the drive that drives the soul towards its evolutionary destiny or origin, where it came from. But yet, if we just look into our past, and we can do this now in modern day because of, you know, our ability to reenact the past through drama and movies and things like that. And yeah, maybe not, some of it's over exaggerated, maybe some of it's downplayed, but the point is that we have an indication of the sort of trauma and challenges and difficulties that people have faced. Not only have they faced in just survival of as a species, but also in modern times against authority in life. Or some people with, you know, small group of people or one person with so much power and authority and their wish to rule or govern or control. And right now, with Pluto opposing the moon on this full moon, as we're going at this point of our evolutionary cycle, we're going to be feeling a lot of the heaviness of the emotional experience and the density of a lot of the pain and insecurity and disempowerment that our forebears had with regards to authority. So it's a lot. Yeah, it's a huge amount. So the key is self-nurture, right? Not self-medicate, self-nurture. What do you need to do to make yourself feel good, to nurture yourself so you feel sort of secure again? You need to take time out. You need to maybe look at the way you speak to yourself. You're hard or burdened on yourself. So yeah, remember that. But let's look at the nodes. So why do we look in particular at the nodes of the moon for past stuff? And there's some really good books on this. One particular book, I forget the name of the title of the book, but it's by Stephen Forrest. He's written quite a few good astrological books. When I upload this to YouTube, I will put the title of the book in the show notes. So, but he states in that book that one of the key reasons is that because what gets preserved from our previous past life experiences, and as a side note, you know, we're having the belief, at least, you know, to our level of understanding of a reincarnating soul or a past life experiences or many past lives. Yesterday's sky, could be that. Thank you, Mallory. I can't remember now. It'll come to me, and if it doesn't, I'll look it up to make sure that you guys can check into that book, but it's a really good book. And the other author is Jeffrey Wolf Green, who writes on Pluto. So some fantastic authors in those two guys. But what Stephen Forrest states is that what gets preserved from our previous life experiences is the emotional aspect of it. We don't intellectualize our past life experiences. We don't activate them on the mental plane. We activate them on the emotional plane because we might have had a deep emotional experience through that life or in our ending of that life. And that emotional imprint onto our soul is what gets carried forth. And what rules that within astrology is the moon. So we look to the moon's nodes, the north node and south node, the south node being the past life experiences, the emotional imprint that we brought forward, most importantly into this life experience as a karmic sort of resolution, right? We're bringing that south node experience through so that we can overcome it, or we can bring it into our consciousness and we can resolve some karmic energy that's attached to it. And then the north node being pointing towards the soul's sort of destiny as to what direction we want to go with it. They have an 18 and a bit year orbit through the zodiac in retrograde motion. And the last time they were in Taurus, Scorpio, was 2003 and till 2004. And the last day of the nodal shift in 2004, right? Scorpio, South Node, Taurus, North Node. The very last day was 2004 on Boxing Day. And it's like, wow, isn't that interesting? That the almost the very first day, 18 years later, and we have this sort of, well, I don't look at it as a massive, like, so for that tsunami, that was like 250,000 people were killed in all sorts of different places from the Boxing Day tsunami. So in modern times, that was pretty much one of the biggest events that's wiped out the most people, huge. And here we are with this sort of right just before we enter into them, when we have this little tsunami stuff going on. And I can't help but see the sort of cyclical or connectedness to those events. It's quite interesting. But if we go to 2003, right before 2003 nodal shift, which happened in April, right before there was the Iraq war kicked off. And remember, around that time, it was weapons of mass destruction. You know, it was weapons of mass destruction. And just that theme of mass destruction, like if you were to think, for those of you that are, you know, budding astrologers and learning, like, you know, if you think mass destruction, you got to be think Pluto, right? You just think naturally that's Pluto energy. And Pluto is the co-ruler of Scorpio. And right before we go into the Iraq war, it was this big energy into Sagittarian Gemini nodal axis, right? So this information we were getting, right, was coming through as weapons of mass destruction. And we go there based on fear, right? Fear of what? Fear of them having weapons of mass destruction. We've had that event in 2001 where they supposedly blamed that on them, and that now it's, and what is it really about? It was about the control, which is very Scorpion. It was about the control of resources. And resources are not only like oil in the ground, right? Natural resources, but also resources in geographical location, military, occupying particular parts of the fixed earth, this earth, right? Strategy. So, you know, and that was really the theme. And it wasn't until in 2004 that it came out that there were no weapons of mass destruction. But by then, guess what? They'd gone in, toppled Saddam, and taken over Iraq, and apparently liberated the people. And that war went on until 2011, I believe. Crazy, crazy stuff. Are we going to go into war? I don't think you can look back at the nodes alone and just say, okay, well, that happened then, it's going to happen now. But it helps to understand, like, you know, how the collective energy was feeling around that time. And there's a lot of fear. And the people that are in the shadows, that are controlling the people in the positions of authority, right? Either through power or greed or a combination of those things, or, you know, they have something hanging over them. They're manipulating the time, they're manipulating the script, they're manipulating astrology and the energy to remain in power. So if we know that, and we have that as an understanding, we can look at this nodal shift and be like, okay, we're going to be dealing with themes around, you know, power and control, fear, death, right? The fear of death and what that does. We're going to be dealing with resources, right? Already what's been happening in the beginning of this year, which is just a continuation of 2021, really. There's nothing significant changed on New Year's as far as, you know, new energy as a new year or anything like that. It was just an amplification perhaps of the themes of 2021 and some of the karmic repercussions of 2021 starting to come in. But what have we had? Supply chain issues with regards to, you know, being no food in the supermarkets and the issues, and it's being blamed on COVID, but is it being manufactured? And what is it instilling in people? A state of insecurity and fear around what their resources, you know, what they need to have. I don't know if, you know, there's no meat in the butchers, or there's no toilet paper in the toilet. So there's this sort of scarcity aspect into it. Some of the Taurian themes that I guess we are being asked to call in is to look at the way we manage resources. How do we manage our resources? Personal resources, right? When it comes to money in your life and things of value, your possessions and wealth creation. And, you know, the key to transcend the Taurian sort of needing to have or possessiveness or that materialistic aspect is to know that you have everything that you have. You have to embody the state as I have all I need. I have everything I need. Then you don't need to acquire anything else, right? And then you can give freely and abundantly from what you have. And it's this flow of when you realize you have everything, you actually possess nothing, you know, and that's that sort of transcendental nature of Taurus. But what will come into theme really is people's possessions and wealth and things of value. We may see some big shifts because there's some huge lunations this year. The difference between the North Node, South Node in 2003 and 2004, this time we have the North Node and South Node in this axis with Uranus in the mix, right? So when they were last in Taurus, Scorpio, Uranus was in Pisces. It was moving from Aquarius to Pisces. Neptune was in Aquarius and Pluto was in Sagittarius. This time we've got Uranus in Taurus. So Uranus is going to occupy the same zodiac house as the North Node, which is going to bring this aspect of revolution into destiny and what's really being called of us, right? And that amplifies this theme of Taurus, which is about values, money, wealth, and possessions. Shortly, I'll show you the next full moon, which I'm really interested in, and then we'll have a quick look at the eclipses this year as well, because they're really going to bring this element of change within the eclipses, and this change to this dynamic as well. Don't be stuck in the past, in the fear, the insecurity, the disempowerment, someone else, because when you're in that state, you're going to be easily controlled. And these are all aspects of Scorpio: fear of loss, fear of death. And then when you're in that state, someone can control you, manipulate you. And that's sort of the shadow aspect of Scorpio. And we're being called to rise above that, right? We're being called to confront that or to let it go, to let it be. And when we revolutionize our Taurus, our value system, and we actually go, well, these are the things that really matter. And at the end of the day, as long as there's, you know, breath in my lungs and I stand firmly on this Mother Earth, like I have everything I need. Can you get to that place? Because when you can, there is no thing that they can do to control you through fear. Right? So this is an opportunity for you to really confront those things in your life where you think, if I don't have that, I'm going to feel insecure, or I'm going to feel like, so those things, they're the very things that may control you. Yeah, cool. Can't be gaslit when you're in your body. Absolutely. You want to get to the place where there's nothing that someone can have over you that can control you. And if they can control you through the Taurus aspect of your wealth, your money, or possessions, and I feel that that's coming, you know, some sort of transition, collapse, manufactured or not, within the economic system, a new monetary system, right? Taurus ruling over the money, things of value, and we've got the node in there now, as well as Uranus, so this revolution of that. You can't tell me that the powers that be aren't going to utilize this astrology to implement or revolutionize the monetary system. And what it will come out of it will be what? People's fear of not having will mean that they'll be easily controlled into a centralized system. And I don't think that's going to be beneficial. It might come on the back of a passport needed now, or your own QR code. Now, Levette, if you've watched a recent video on Brighteon, I recommend, I'll put that in my show notes as well, but she had an excellent saying in her latest video about the QR code, because she does her esoteric symbolism really well. So Levette is a lady that she used to be on YouTube a lot, but then her videos kept getting pulled. She talks about some really deep stuff. She calls out a lot of the, organizations and people she's able to go back in history and look at all the symbolism. She doesn't use solar or lunar astrology. She uses what she calls Saturnalian astrology. So it's a little different, or alchemical astrology. So there's some things that are a bit over the head, and but the general essence of the woman, she's a Capricorn. She's just got a really cool sort of like cut, no bullshit, straight to it, but in a real charismatic sort of way, which is nice. I really resonate with her stuff. But she had a thing that she said about the QR code, which they say that you're going to have your own personal QR code. Instead of having to sign into a QR code, they're going to scrap all that, and where you go, you QR in is now your own significant. And she said, look at the QR code, it's the Masonic tracing board all mashed up and mumbled up, which is the order out of chaos. The Masonic tracing board is the checkered board, right, which you play chess on, with white and black squares. And the QR code looks like that, except it's all mumbled up. Yeah, so she's on Brighteon. Just type in 11 Levette 11. She's on Brighteon. I'll put some of her stuff on my Telegram for you guys. Yeah, exactly, Alicia. It's been happening in China now for a while. And that's why, and I don't want to trigger some people, but that's why Trump was saying this is a China virus. This is Chinese communism. How do they control, exactly, how do they control mass population? Well, if you're a ruling elite, and you're worried about awakening people taking control of reality and you losing control or power within that reality, you're going to be like, oh shit, like people are waking up. What are we going to do? Well, if you look over at China, there's how many? 2 billion people maybe, or 1.8 something billion people. And their government has done a fucking good job of controlling them. So wouldn't you at least borrow that that system of control, or directly use it, or say to China, hey, we need your help? Like, of course that's what's been going on, because man, like that, their system, it doesn't work in the essence of freedom and liberation for individuations, but it works in the sense is it fucking mass control. Never mind weapons of mass destruction. What about weapons of mass control? And that, if any of you guys want to, put up on your YouTube story about this live tonight, you can say, I'm learning about weapons of mass control with Luke. Because literally, like, this is where we're going into. And Taurus, got you by the things of value, got you by the money system. It's the money system can enact mass control. But literally, that's what the fiat system does at the moment. People are willing to do whatever it takes to lie, cheat, and steal to get their hands on the fake, phony fiat fucking money. So, it's a fantastic tool of control. So anyway, bit of a tangent there, but what was I going to say? There's something else in there that I've gone on a big tangent about, but that doesn't matter. In your own personal chart, before we go and look at some key dates for this year, in your own personal chart, look at your Taurus and your Scorpio houses, because this is where the eclipses are going to fall over this next 18-month period, and what you're being called towards and what you're being required of, like, learning to overcome and to let go of, right? So when you want a more personal understanding of how this is going to impact you, look to the house placements of the transiting nodes and what it's highlighting for you. As the north, if we just follow the north node, if you just follow the north node, I need a drink of water. But it's too fucking late. I've gone too far and too deep. But if you just follow the north node through the first house, let's say the north node is coming through your first house, Taurus rising, then there is this need to really highlight your personal health, your physical appearance, areas in your life where you're assertive, how you show up in your life. The way in which you go about engaging in any new thing that you're trying to achieve. Sorry, people with emojis. But then the polarization, 7th house. So there may be some letting go of or transformation, or another way to look at the Scorpio South Node is transmutation, right? Is to transmute that shit. That's one of the best aspects of Scorpio energy. Scorpio 8th house, they used to call that the house of sex, death, and transformation. And there's this death and rebirth that can happen. Sometimes the death process requires, when it's across the first 7th house, the south node of the 7th, the death may be literally the death of a relationship, maybe an intimate one, or maybe a family one, or a friendship. It doesn't have to be, you know, finite. Is that the word? Not finite. Fuck me dead. It's a fucking word. Can't think of the word now. It can be a way of being. It can be a way of relating. It can be a way of you know, acting within your relationship. If you think that the North Node is calling you towards maybe a transformation, because if your North Node is in the first house, you're also going to have Uranus in there. So this is this revolution or individuation process, and it might require you breaking from some habits, you know, with regards to the way you present yourself, how you show up, the way you dress. And sometimes too, if you're wanting to know how to make these types of changes and your North Node and Uranus are in your first house, well, perhaps you can just challenge yourself to show up a little bit differently. You know, you might cut your hair or color it. You might stop wearing certain things, or might just go radical transformation and start wearing different things. Doing things slightly differently, right? Challenge yourself to do something different when it comes to just your daily habits and routines. And this will then naturally highlight in the relationships, okay, where there's alignment and where there's the need to let things go. And you're able to transmute those situations, those experiences. Sometimes the death of the relationship will happen and the rebirth into, you know, a new relationship or no relationship. But really, first house North Node is like the focus on you, right? The first house is one of those houses where it's about you. So bring that to, yeah, I'm going to go around the houses just quickly. So I'm not going to spend too much time, otherwise it'll go on forever. This, but second house and 8th house. So you have a natural chart. So then it's really looking at your finances and looking at your self-worth. Often finances, wealth and possessions are a direct correlation towards your own personal value. So how much do you value yourself? With Uranus co-present there, it's like, well, there's this revolution of the things that you value and learning to, you know, value yourself more. Letting go of support from other people, perhaps reliance, we're letting go of reliance on maybe the person or the partner or the resources of those you're with, and becoming more self-reliant, right? So more reliance here in the 8th house of, you know, the other person's resources or their support. And now the North Node in the second is like learning how to be more self-reliant, you know, so that might be letting go of some, you know, support that you might receive from those close to you. Or the need for that support as well. If there's a reluctance to sort of step into that, you might find the eclipses are really significant turning points in that process. Third house, 9th house. So third house, Taurus in the third house is, you know, maybe your sibling relationships are brought into focus, but third house is going to be all of the local stuff. So, you know, the way in which you communicate, your expression. You might find that you all of a sudden desire to start journaling more, or writing a book, or doing some sort of creative project that involves communication of some sort, getting on social media, speaking out, something like that. And you're being, you know, called into that third house of like addressing your style and way in which you communicate to the world, and how you communicate yourself to the rest of the world. You're letting go maybe of some ideals, some beliefs. You might be letting go of, you know, your desire to travel long distances, or you might be forced into a situation where you can't do that either anymore. Fourth house, then it's saying to you now, focus on the self, as in the inner self. Do the healing. Maybe you're bringing up some wounds around, you know, family stuff, around the home, around your upbringing, maybe doing some ancestral work. You may be called in to do some renovating of your house. You know, you might be moving house. You might be finding that place where you belong in the world. Ultimately, when you have a really strong fourth house, you've found the place you belong is within you, and you feel really strong in your self-acceptance and self-love. That is an expression of the comfort, sort of homely feeling. When you've got that feeling from within, it doesn't matter where you are. When you don't feel that inside, you might be called in to address that by relocating with the North Node in the 4th house. The 10th house means there may be this release or transformation or transmutation or letting go of the career, your ambitions, goals. Sometimes too, with that access in there and the eclipses, there might be the departing of a family member or a parent that was significant in your life, or a person that had some sort of authority within your life. The eclipses can activate sudden changes with Uranus in there around those, and those 4th house and 10th house can be directly related to our parents, our family. 5th house, 11th house. So the focus is on yourself, is it in the way you express yourself and your creativity. Might be a good time for romance. You might be sort of meeting, new people and really out there and have the focus on you and your creative pursuits. You might be called into just having more joy, taking more risks, or having more fun, and letting go of groupthink and your social obligations. Worrying about what others think, having to keep up the Joneses, trying to please everyone all the time. It's really about 5th house putting the self first and stepping into the light a little bit, putting the attention onto the self again instead of so much into the social or your group commitment or your responsibility within the collective. 6th house, then it's definitely going to be around your health, your daily life, around your habits and routines, your work as far as the vocation you have, so the work that you do within it. So it could be issues around employers, the type of work that you're doing. You might be saying, well, is this what I really want to do? You might be having those deep questions with Uranus and Taurus in the 6th house. You might be having those deep questions around, like, is this what I want to do? Or there might be a transformation of the type of work you're doing. For myself, I have the Taurus 6th house energy, and it's funny, I've been doing, I haven't for some time. I've had a little bit of sabbatical from some of my training, but I'm about to pick it back up. I've been doing past life regression, subconscious regression stuff, and done some training around that. And I'm being called into starting to offer that as a service. So it's literally past life stuff to help people heal, 6th house, and that's where my Taurus is. So it's not changing my 10th house so much of my career and what I'm doing, but it's definitely changing what I'm doing within my career. And that might be something that's happening with that aspect of, North Node in your 6th house. 7th house, we're flipping this now. See, we've reached this point and we're flipping it now. And when I had my North Node in my 6th house, 7th house here, I met the person I'm engaged to now. So literally fate and destiny is calling you into that house of relationship. So it's a really nice time for the relationship. Really nice time for relationship. But it might not necessarily be the focus on you anymore. It might be just how you're showing up in your relationships. It might be the focus on the other person in your relationship, and then the need to put your attention there. Uranus is going to be in there too, so some change is required. And it's the type of change that is requiring you to maybe let go of some things. And maybe it's being more liberal in quality, more considerate, more pleasing, more, what's the word? Always get this word because it's a com word. Fuck me dead. What is it? It's not compromise. The other one, collaboration. Fuck, I don't know what this means. I'll pause for a second because I can feel it. Collaborations. To collaborate your energy instead of competition. Okay. 8th house North Node. North Node going through your 8th house. So, there could be a focus on your personal relationship and the shared resources. This might be a time where you're going into partnerships with people, and there's a lot of contractual stuff going on. There could be looking at the aspect of finances that we don't like to look at, which is a focus on your debts and your taxes. So you might be like, oh, those things I've been putting off and I haven't wanted to look at them. And now it's like, you know what, you've got to address those things, because what are they doing? They're ruling from the shadow. They're that, you know, could be hidden from this sort of hidden realm. But the Taurus in there is like, or the North Node in Taurus is like, you know, let's focus here. Let's clean shop a little bit. My internet connection's a little bit unstable. So yeah, let's clean shop a little bit. So it also might be bringing some things up in that 8th house stuff that have been concealed or not within your relationship, that have not been addressed in relation to how you share your responsibilities and obligations together when it comes to your financial commitments and responsibilities. Probably got COVID. So yeah, that could be coming up. And there might be some shifts around, you know, your own possessions and money, the way you're handling it. I gotta get a glass of water. Excuse me. Ninth house. So this is a focus on your ideals, and this may be your reactivation of your soul's quest, a remembering of why you're here. Yeah, I've just got you know, like a little Kevin Bloody Wilson has a funny song about that. I won't sing it. Could be Rodney Rude, one of them. Very, very Scorpio of me. Throat chakra. Yeah, which is throat chakra, which we haven't actually spoken about as well, which is Taurus. We got the throat chakra, and then we've got our reproductive chakra, right, with the Scorpio energy as well. So interesting. I'm talking about this and being stopped talking because of something going on my throat. So 9th house, though, you know, this could be a focus for you personally into the area of life of like meaning and finding meaning and purpose. And the ability to transcend with what's going on at the moment is going to be clearly in relation to how well you have developed a personal meaning for life. Like, what is it? And it can be exactly that, a very personal quest or meaning, what it is for you. And this might highlight for you where you haven't got that, where you're lacking that, where you're lacking some sort of meaning, spiritual meaning. So things that might come up for you that, you know, drawing your attention would be like maybe wanting to travel, wanting to, you know, study a new language or do some higher education. You might want to all of a sudden take on a more spiritual investigation or into, you know, religion or philosophy. With the 8th house, it could be into metaphysics, you know, with that North Node in there. It could be this, they're really drawn to like the occult aspect of reality, you know, what's hidden and concealed and wanting to get into that. You might study psychology or something like that. The 10th house is going to be around your career, right? So the North Node in the 10th house with Uranus is like there's this sort of destiny is playing its hand with your career. This is a really good opportunity to sort of push forward with your goals or to maybe make some radical shift within the career. The fear might be like letting go of your security, your comfort zone. With Uranus there, it's like exciting and sudden change, but the North Node is sort of mitigating that and saying, you know what, like this is where you're at. Come on, get out there, put yourself out there, push ahead with your goals and your ambitions. The 11th house, especially with Uranus co-present, you might be sort of drawn to some fringe groups. You might be drawn to some deep transformation within your social groups, your friendships and things like that. You know, what do you value when it comes to your social connection? You might find that those connections that you've had that are not aligned to your personal values go through a revolution like a Uranus transition as well. And all of a sudden you got new friends, or you got, you know, less friends. If that process happens, it's to know that, you know, the acquaintances that you had that may be in there for, you know, long term, if you start to really align to your values and question like whether this connection is supportive of that or not, can sometimes mean that they just fall by the wayside. There's no alignment anymore, and that's okay. You'll have this revolution going on within that 11th house. And then the 12th house, so isolation, introspection, meditation, contemplation. It's the house of undoings. It's the house of hidden enemies. It's the house of cyclic endings, right? This is the house of transcendence as well. So you might be called into your life in regards to some health stuff that might be going on to like learn how to see the bigger picture. You know, and that's one of the aspects of the 12th that enables us to do, is to sort of transcend and to be able to look at it from the bigger picture. Often when we get emotionally overwhelmed though, the way in which to do that the best is to actually disconnect and to isolate. So spiritual quests and practices are going to best suit the 12th house north node, you know, so having some sort of regular ritualistic meditative or spiritual thing that you can do, whether it's reading books regularly, it could be journaling, it could be dream journaling. In fact, dreams are probably going to be really highlighted for you, and that could be the unconscious or subconscious trying to communicate to you, and they could be coming louder. My dreams over the last little while have been becoming really vivid, and some patterns starting to re-emerge in them as well. So just the dreamscape in general, especially with Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces. But if your north node is in the 12th house, it might be an area of life that starts to become more active. So we'll finish off with some of the key things to look out for this year with regards to dates. Obviously the eclipses. So, and I'll put this in the show notes as well, but on the 30th of April, and I've gotten these from the ephemeris, so the date might be the day before, because it could be slightly off, but 30th of April, we have a new moon at 10 degrees Taurus, and that is a new moon eclipse, solar eclipse. It's a partial eclipse. So anything, you know, on that 10 degrees, especially on fixed signs, then start to circle and highlight that for yourself. The full moon on the 16th of May. Crystal Time talks about this a lot in her videos on YouTube. If you've been watching her, she's feeling based on the symbolism, and she's looking at the constellations and the mythology of the constellations and the symbolism and what's been going on. She's saying that that's going to be an ascension moon, full moon. So her name is Crystal Time. So CRYSTAL, and time is THYME. You want to look up, I'll put her in the show notes as well. So there's that. Crystal. She's got some stuff on YouTube. With all these people that you come across, myself included, don't believe like the gospel. Do your research, you know, go with what resonates, leave what doesn't. Don't cling on it to it like it's some sort of prophecy. It's just helpful guidance. And if it helps you in some way to navigate your life or to become more aware or be a better person or whatever it does, then it's great. But don't tend to, you know, look for the savior. That's a definite shadow aspect of Pisces age, is that, you know, someone's coming to save us. It's like you save you. And that's the age of knowing. And Christ consciousness is within you. It's not some savior coming to, that happened in the age of Pisces, so to speak. So he came here and he died for us. So we didn't have to, he died for our sins. All we've got to do is ask our forgiveness, because we don't know what we're doing. And that's clear, right? Because we're being lost. We don't know what we're doing. In the age of Pisces, we are lost at sea consciously. We've come here and we don't know who we are, when we are, what we are, why we are, and we're lost. So, you know, Jesus dies on the cross, so to speak, and dies for our sins. And all we have to do is say, oh, forgive me, Father, I didn't know what I was doing, and ask for forgiveness. whereas in the age of Aquarius, it's knowing. So, and it's, you reap what you sow, you know, and you reap what you sow. So what I was getting at there was, don't place all of your importance on one person on the internet saying something. You know, if lots of people are saying it in different ways, then you can be like, oh, that's interesting. And an example of that is the full moon in May. On the 16th, it's a blood full moon, and it's in 25 degrees of Scorpio. That's a big dynamic full moon. We'll have a quick look at it shortly on the astrology. I won't do a full breakdown because I'll save that for the update later in the year, but it's a big one to watch. So yeah, there's another new moon on the 25th of October, and that's at 2 degrees of Scorpio, and that's a solar eclipse. And then we have a full moon on the 8th of November in Taurus, and that's also an eclipse, a lunar eclipse. So those are the dates for the moons, except one more I want to add to that, which is the next full moon on the 17th of February, 16th, 17th of February, just after Valentine's Day. There's a full moon, and it's squaring the nodes. So let's quickly check that out, and then I'll open up just for some brief questions, and then we'll be done, and I can go and read a bedtime story. Okay. There it is. So that's roughly it, 27 degrees. You'll notice it's at the same. So for those out there, this year, the 11th, 12th degree and the 25th, 6th, and 7th degree, 28th degree, though, of all signs, they're super active, because the first half of this year, the new moons are around the 11, 12, and the full moons are around 27, 26, 25, or 28. So look in your own personal chart. If you've got a lot of planetary energy around that chart, there's going to be a pretty dynamic, powerful shift and energy for you this year. If you want to know specifically how it's going to play out, then you have to do an interpretation on the houses of these placements and break that all down. But here's the next full moon. So this is the first full moon with the nodal shift, because the Cancer full moon we're having on Tuesday happens just before the nodal shift. So this is the first full moon of this nodal shift. So it's going to bring about a lot of this sort of energy, and it's pretty much directly square. And we know when we have this, you know, opposition with an opposition squaring it, we have what they call as a grand cross or a grand square, right? It's a little different when it's the nodes involved, because there's no planetary placement here. So there's not really any planetary energy activating the nodes at this point. But what's interesting about that is that this is ruled by Mars and this is ruled by Venus, and look at where they are in the sky, bang on top of each other. So, you know, Venus being the ruler of Taurus with Uranus in there, or now Uranus is also direct. And we're saying about there being maybe a potential economic transition or a collapse or a manufactured one. This is something I would say is like a bit of an indicator for that. And shortly after this in March, pretty much for the entire month of March, you'll have Venus, Mars, and Saturn all in Aquarius, except you'll have Mars, then you'll have Venus, then you'll have Saturn. And what happens is they call that when Venus is besieged, because she's in between two malefic planets and she's in the same sign, right? So it's just like, I don't know how they're going to, or when they're going to, or what they're going to, but I'm like, if I was, you know, an evil Dr. Evil, I'd probably use that transit of Venus, you know, through Aquarius as the time to sort of really lay siege to things that Venus rules. Through Taurus, it's money. Yeah. And the US Pluto return, first exact February 20 in Capricorn. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's very significant. The thing with the outer planets, and this is going to be the next course that I'm going to do, because a lot of you guys have done my courses and stuff. But the next course I'm going to do is I'm going to start it in February, actually, all being everything going to plan, is going to be on just a short 4-week course on transits and using transits. How do we use transits? How do we interpret them? And which transits to use as well? Because transiting the moon, if we look at the moon transiting, and we're like, fucking hell, it's going to hit every fucking thing every other day. It's going to be doing something. So which transits do we look at? And how to interpret using transits based on where the transit's happening, the planets that it's hitting, where they are natally, what houses they rule, and then what aspects involved as well. So there's a fantastic book on that, which I'll give you on the time so you don't get overloaded with too much information. But we'll do a 4-week little course on just like basics that you need to know when it comes to interpreting transits and how you connect them to our personal chart. But yeah, look at that full moon. That's an interesting one. The crystal time lady I was talking about, she has said that there is a lot of symbolism around the Valentine's Day this year. And she thinks that this could be the economic / tsunami event happening around this full moon. I'm like, well, yeah, possibly. And then obviously the 16th of May, which was the blood moon in Scorpio, the blood full moon in Scorpio. Let's quickly look at that, and then I'll open it up to any questions, and then we'll call it an evening. Where are we? And if we want to do the questions, because we're live and we're recording it, if you want to do the questions, if you want to come on and talk rather than put it in the show notes, that way people that watch this back can see. So I find it helpful and useful. Don't be shy. So yeah, here is the full moon, the blood full moon in May. And this is significant because of the nodal shift, because this is happening as an eclipse. So here it is at the 25th degree, I believe. Yes. So there's that 25th degree, as I was saying, like 25, 26, 27, 28 degrees, 11, 12, 13 degrees. They're all getting really hammered this year. But here's the thing. So the moon is in Scorpio. So it's a lunar eclipse conjunct the south node. So the co-ruler of the eclipse is Pluto and Mars, and they're both configured to the moon. So Pluto is in retrograde and the moon is applying to a sextile. Mars is in Pisces, conjunct Neptune, trining the moon. Uranus is conjunct the north node, conjunct the sun, all in Taurus. So all 3 outer planets are configured to this one. Plus you have Saturn squaring, which gives this sort of release point over here in Leo. Fire sign, fixed fire sign. So crystal time again, and some other people online say that this is a pretty significant event. She calls this the ascension, or the whether it could be the solar flare or something like that that's going off. So these are some pretty big lunations to sort of keep an eye on. If more information comes to light, or I see anything else that supports or goes against this, I'll let you guys know. But that the next full moon after this, like this one's big, it's opposite Pluto. The next one's huge, it's squaring the nodes, and then this one's big because it's an eclipse. It's a blood full moon. It's got every outer planet configured to it. You've got Mars and Neptune in conjunction. Jupiter's just ingressed into Aries, cardinal fire. Really hard to just briefly break that down, but I would say and the fact that there's this really strong T-square between Saturn and the eclipse, there's going to be a big, huge release of energy, and usually that plays out in the T-square in this aspect over here, fixed fire, Leo. So, but what's it causing? I would just quickly look at that and go, individuation, right? Individuation. So you know, even though this is Aquarius is a sign of individuation, it's through our unique personal expression that we individuate. There you go. Sorry, that answers your question. What was the degree of the 8th of November? The 8th of November full moon is a 16-degree Taurus. So, and the blood moon is 25 degrees of Scorpio. And then the question is, my Scorpio moon is at 25 degrees in the 9th house. Is that a good thing? Yeah, there's no such thing as good or bad. Remember the polarity. When you say something's good, then you're going to be opposed by the bad. If something's bad, there's something else that's going to be good. It's got to be in the middle of it is what it is. And it's your ability to handle that. But, you know, with that on your moon like that, it could be helping you shift some deep emotional stuff. Because I know the Scorpio moons like to hold on to shit. It's fixed water. So it's like, you know, and what are you holding on to? You can hold on to a lot of emotional energy and pain. So this moon might be a big release for you in that area of life of letting go, because that's what the full moon helps us do, is to let shit go. And I'll answer that question shortly, is to let shit go. And, you know, it frees us, right? It frees us to move on. But when we're holding on to pain and hurt, we're just reliving that experience into the future. That's called living the nightmare. You know, so it's hard. I get it. It's hard to let go sometimes. So, yeah, sometimes in order to let go, like we have to go back and make sense of it and understand it from a new set of perspective, or a new way to look at reality or life or an experience. Sometimes it's a lens that we can look at it and go, okay, I can see it in a different light now. And the other thing is too, the meaning in the story we tell ourselves about it. Like we can change that at any given point in time. We don't have to make it mean what we've been making it mean. We can make it mean something. We can give it new meaning. And that new meaning can be just enough to let go of the old one. The old one has got you in this state of, so yeah, that's that Scorpio full moon for you would be huge. My natal moon is 26 degrees of Taurus. So I'm on the other side of that. So I have the sun sitting on my moon and this full moon in opposition. So that'd be quite big. You're most welcome. Rightio. So that is tonight's little update. Anyone questions and feel courageous enough to jump on at this? You know, it's 21:21 where I am, so that's the sign. To jump on and ask any questions. Moving forward, I will be in Melbourne next Monday and Tuesday, most likely. So if you want to get a face-to-face, just DM me on social media and I'll tee it up. I will be offering that out. I've already had about half a dozen people that want to get sessions. So I'd say it'll fill up quickly. I will be releasing within the next week the course that I'm going to do on transits. So understanding transits, how to use transits to interpret and predict, you know, and just get a better personal use on that. So if you want to just look out on my social media for that. I'm going to do these more often on the full and new moons, trying to do just little Zoom catch-ups. And I am thinking of having like a little club that we can just, you know, get together weekly and talk shit about astrology and ask questions and go on this journey, because I have, you know, obviously the same type of people that keep coming through. And I feel like that's, you know, what is going to help move through this sort of next couple of years, I would say, but is community and building community and like-minded people. And now more than ever, it's really important to be around those people that are like-minded, that you feel comfortable and secure and comfortable with, right? If you haven't got that, then you create it or you seek it and you look for it. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for stopping by. So if no one's got any questions, I'm going to end it. We're all good. No worries, guys. No worries. If there's something personal and you don't want to ask in a group forum, just reach out afterwards, send me a message on Instagram, and I'm more than happy to lend my ear. Otherwise, take care, nurture yourself over the next few days, detach from the narrative out there in the big world, right? We're mindful of the weapons of mass control, right? This is the new nodal shift. It's the weapons of mass control that are coming through. So they've already been laying the groundwork for that. So yeah, we need to be mindful of that. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else I want to add. So on that note, thanks again. I'll see you guys soon.